Mark's all by himself.
We good? The caucus meeting of June 6, 2023 will now come to order at 7:46 p.m. Present are Council President Broussard, Council Members Gilchrist, Heeman, Limpert, Madden, and Williamson. Also present are the Mayor and the Directors of Law, Finance, Human Resources, Service, and Recreation, as well as guests. If there are no additions or corrections, the caucus meeting minutes of May 16th, 2023 are approved as written. Regarding suspension of the rules, there are 5 items on the agenda being requested for suspension this evening. The first is ordinance 2023-59, which is on second reading. Mayor Jones, would you like to speak to this one?
Mr. President, this ordinance is setting the rates of compensation for a information systems specialist in the Division of Police. It was discussed in committee, and we're requesting suspension so that the administration can post the position and move forward with hiring.
Thank you, Mayor. Let the record reflect that the Safety Director is also present. Are there any objections from council to suspension on 2023-59? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. Next being requested for suspension is ordinance 2023-60 on second reading. Mayor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is for the administration to solicit proposals for our comprehensive general liability insurance, and again, requesting suspension so that the procedure to solicit proposals can begin, and we can move forward with selecting insurance for general liability.
Thank you, Mayor. Any objections from council to suspension on 60? Okay, moving on. Also being requested for suspension is Resolution 2023-62, also on second reading. And back to you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a resolution to enter into a contract with Highland Software to provide digital imaging services, also discussed in committee, and the request for suspension is so that we can enter into that contract and then begin processing the images that we need to for this year.
All right, thank you. Any objections from council to suspension on 2023-62? All right, moving on on first reading.
Mr. President.
Oh, Councilman Limpert.
That was 62 and 63, right?
60.
Just
60 and 62.
Oh,
Yeah, we've covered 59,
Oh, you're about to
60,
go to 63.
and 62. Yes.
I lumped those together in my head. Thanks.
All good.
Okay.
On first reading, being requested for suspension is ordinance 2023-67.
Mr. President.
Mayor.
62.
If council would allow for 63 to also be considered for suspension. So both of the 62 and 63, as discussed in committee, are under ARPA funds, and they do go hand in hand. One is for the upgraded service that Highland Software was going to provide for the city, as discussed in committee.
And then the second one is the small amount is the annual building documents that we get scanned every year.
Okay. So I'll pose the same question. Any objections from council to suspension on 2023-63?
Mr. President, I don't have any issues, and I'm glad that those are grouped together.
All right. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. First reading, request for suspension is ordinance 2023-67. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an ordinance regarding the heavy-duty custom pumper fire truck that was discussed during the budget process with City Council. We are ready to move forward with that purchase through the state purchase program, and are requesting suspension because, as council has been made aware, every day that we wait to move forward with these types of purchases, the cost continues to increase. So that is why we're asking for suspension this evening.
Understood. Thank you, Mayor. Any objections from council to suspension on ordinance 2023-67?
Mr. Chair,
Councilwoman
thank you.
Heeman.
Thank you. Not an objection at all. I just would like to have into the record, please, if the finance director will explain where the funds are coming from, because I think that's an important piece for the public to understand. It is a large purchase, $903,000, and, you know, I'd like for the funds to be described as to.
As it's set up in the budget, in the permanent budget, it's getting paid for with cash in the the EMS fund, the Emergency Medical Billing Fund, where 50% of the EMS billing for resident and non-resident receipts goes into that fund, and the other 50 goes to the general fund. And the portion that's collecting in the Emergency Medical Services Fund is the piece that's paying for that. And that's what the intent was, to pay for large equipment purchases, save up for them, and be able to pay for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then lastly, also on first reading, being requested for suspension is Resolution 2023-72. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. This resolution is to allow us to accept a gift to the city of North Olmsted to benefit our Oxcart Food Pantry from the Linda Sue Gregson Trust in the amount of over $92,000 that she has left to benefit our food pantry. And we are requesting suspension so that the city can move forward. And as you know, council needs to approve all of the donations that are that large of amount that comes to the city.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll ask the rhetorical question. Any objections from council to suspension on this one? Okay, thank you. Assigning legislation, ordinance 2023-67, which is on suspension tonight, will be assigned to Public Safety, Health, and Welfare. Resolution 2023-71 will be assigned to Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings. Ordinances 2023-69, 70, 74, as well as Resolution 2023-72 will be assigned to Finance. And then Ordinance 2023-68 and Resolution 2023-73 will be assigned to Streets and Transportation.
Mr. Broussard, can you give me those finance ones again? It was
Yes.
73, 74,
Sure. So Finance,
69.
Finance will be 60, 70, 74.
60.
I'm sorry?
69, 70.
69, 70.
Yeah, 69, 70, 74, and 72. Sorry that they're out of order there. And then streets will be 68 and 73. Recreation will be 71. And then 67 is public safety, health, and welfare, which leads us into scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Councilman Lippert, would you like to schedule Building, Zoning, and Development Committee regarding ordinances 2023, 52, 53, and 54?
I would, and I guess we'll start at 7 and ask that the Building Zoning Development Director be present. And is this the Rita one? No, that's for finance, right?
Which one are you?
Yeah. Just
Cover.
just for cover, yeah, okay. 7 o'clock, and ask that the planning, the BZD Director and Safety Director be present, and I'm gonna go with, till 7:15, but it might take a little bit longer, we'll see.
Sounds good. Councilwoman Heeman, would you like to schedule Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings
Thank you, yes, for 2023-71, 7:15, and I'll go to 7:20, thank you.
I'm sorry, 7:20? Okay.
Start at 7:15 and go to 7:20.
Yep, all right, thank you. And then back to Councilman Limper, would you like to schedule finance for ordinances 69, 70, and 74?
I would, and I will schedule that at 7:20 to 7:35.
All
And
right.
ask that the finance director be present. And it looks like I might need the, who's gonna cover this right away? Is that gonna be building zone development or streets? The mayor's designee, I'll keep it easy. Thank you.
Yes.
There we go, that's a catch-all.
And
That's a catch-all.
have our law department also present for that.
And then the law director.
All right, thank you. And then finally, Councilman Madden, would you like to schedule streets and transportation at 7:35?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you. Before closing the caucus meeting, I wanted to bring up that I'm hearing from a majority of council members that they would like to move forward with bidding to improve audio-visual upgrades to both caucus and chambers rooms. And I just wanted to see if we could have a conversation about whether or not we want to move forward with drafting new legislation to that end. I'm seeing some head nods. Yeah. Okay.
By council or is the administration going to?
Yeah. I'll get with the mayor and we'll decide whether or not legislation will come from the administration or from council, but, okay.
Or a joint request.
Or joint, yeah, okay.
Mr.
Very good.
President, And would that be considered as committee of the whole at that time? Would you consider that?
We could probably put that in committee of the whole, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, does anyone on
I have one other note.
Councilman Limpert?
Yeah, so just some clarification on 2023-64, that was the Great Northern project. So I did get a note from the law director, and so we had discussed of wanting to amend that. I think we moved forward with a motion to recommend in committee, but we were expecting some clarification. So they did update the numbers, and I'll just read this. Mr. Garreau advised that all the legislation is being amended due to the typo. The need to start process over with new legislation would not apply. So we can move forward with the current proposal, but we will amend the legislation to show the correction. It was from you, but it came from Mr. Garreau being the advisor. So I will credit that to Mr. Garreau. So.
Give credit to B.
Yeah. I give credit to our clerk.
Oh, no. I just didn't want Mr. Grove to think that I was.
No, we're
All
good.
right. All right,
Well, if it says advised, so I'm gonna
Correct.
assume that means he
He
said
did.
something and you
did.
didn't come up with
He
that
did.
yourself.
I didn't.
So, and Ms. Williamson, you're good with that, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else on council have anything else they wish to bring up this evening? All right, anything from the administration?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. Seeing nothing else, the caucus meeting of June 6, 2023 is adjourned at 8:00 p.m. The council meeting of June 6, 2023 will now please come to order at 8:02 PM. The audience is invited to join council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Broussard?
Present.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Here.
Mr. Glassberg? Ms. Heeman?
Here.
Mr. Limpert?
Present.
Mr. Madden?
Here.
Mr. Scarrow? Ms. Williamson?
Here.
If there are no additions or corrections, the council meeting minutes of May 16th, 2023, and the public hearing minutes of May 23rd, 2023 are approved as written. The following legislation is considered for suspension of the rules this evening. On second reading, ordinance 2023-59, ordinances 2023-60, resolution 2023-62, and 63. And then on first reading, ordinance 2023-67 and resolution 2023-72. Moving into reports, Mayor Daley Jones, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, Mr. President, good evening. On Friday, June 2nd, the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office issued a public health alert stating that Cuyahoga County suffered at least 5 suspected overdose deaths in a 12-hour period on Thursday, June 1st. Drug overdose continues to be a problem in our community with periodic clusters of deaths like yesterday, Dr. Tom Gilson warned. He recommends all of us develop a personal harm reduction plan if you or anyone you know is actively using or recovering from an opioid addiction. I am pleased to announce that I am now chair of the Region 3 Advisory Board for the One Ohio Opioid Foundation. Public Safety Director Schofield and I are actively engaged in the local and regional efforts to prevent use and reduce the harm that comes from opiate and other drug overdoses. The Click It or Ticket campaign ran May 22nd to June 4th. The North Olmsted Police Department wrote 25 warnings and 161 total traffic citations, of which 16 were for non-use of seatbelts. Ohio's seatbelt law is unfortunately a secondary offense, so a violation must be in conjunction with another offense such as speeding. Our police department also issues countless verbal warnings during this time period. The new Saturday in the Park Summer Concert Series kicks off with the inaugural concert this Saturday evening, June 10th, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the North Olmsted Community Park. The concert series continues on with concerts on June 24th, July 8th, July 22nd, and August 12th. Opening the series Saturday night are The Soul Men, a Blues Brothers tribute band, and the Swizzle Stick Band, who will feature rock and country hits from the 60s to today. The concert series is free and open to the public. Food trucks will be on site, and alcohol will be available for purchase for those over 21. Yoga in the park will take place from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. on Saturdays, July 1st and 29th, with instructor Nightingale. These programs are free and open to the public with no registration required and will be held at the gazebo at North Olmsted Community Park. The city's Department of Recreation and Public Engagement will present Touch a Truck, which is an event on Saturday, June 17th from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. This family-friendly event provides opportunities for children and adults to explore, climb on, and touch all types of big trucks. The event will happen rain or shine in the parking lot of the North Olmsted Recreation Center. The city is currently hiring lifeguards to staff our indoor and outdoor pools. Interested candidates must have a current lifeguard certificate and be age 16 or older. Positions available include early mornings, starting at 5 a.m., daytime, evenings, and weekends. Please contact Ashley Gribble at our North Olmsted Rec Center. The city is also hiring learn-to-swim instructors and water exercise instructors. June is Pride Month in the city of North Olmsted. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Pride Month is currently celebrated each year in the month of June to honor the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Manhattan. The Stonewall Uprising was a tipping point for the gay liberation movement in the United States. Memorials are also held during this month for those members of the community who have been lost to hate crimes or HIV/AIDS. The West Side Flea will take place from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday at the North Olmsted Community Park, featuring over 100 vendors. You can stop there before going to the concert series. A free produce mobile pantry will take place from 2 to 4 p.m. Monday, June 12th at John Knox Presbyterian Church. And the annual Safety Town will take place later this month in 2 week-long sessions running June 19th through the 23rd and June 26th through the 30th at North Olmsted High School. Safety Town is open to children entering kindergarten in the fall of 2023 and is a 1-week course that focuses on teaching children safe practices both at school and at home. Safety Town is an excellent opportunity for children to explore their community through class activities and field trips while learning important safety precautions. The children are instructed on when, where, and how to cross the street. They're taught bike safety, pedestrian safety, school bus safety, fire safety, seatbelt safety, 911 emergency calls, and stranger danger. Safety Town is geared toward getting children familiar with our safety enforcement agencies, their vehicles, and their uniforms. And that, Mr. President, concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Director of Law Garreau, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a report. The City of North Olmsted appeared before the Ohio Board of Building Appeals on May 22nd, 23. The issue before the board was an appeal from the order of the building commissioner for Horizon Education Centers, and specifically the suitability of the Horizon rooftop seating area. If you've noticed, there's a roof up on top of that building, and there's some picnic tables and what have you. And at issue before the board was an interpretation of the Ohio Building Code concerning the number of methods of egress getting off the roof and whether it was 1 or 2. Prior Plans Examiner Grusenmeyer and current Plans Examiner Gallagher had made a determination that 2 would be required, and of course Horizon argued that only 1 was required. This was a directly to the roof. So this was an interpretation of the code. We were met upon hearing an argument, presented witnesses. It was acknowledged by the architect on the board that it's an issue that has become kind of more in patios and rooftop activities has become more of a complex issue, and it's become kind of a hot topic, I guess, amongst architects, if there's such a thing. And the board, by the design professionals and the attorney, voted to uphold the appeal, and fire safety and trades voted to deny the appeal. So Horizons was successful in their appeal by a vote of 3-2. There's 5 members on the board. However, during the process, some safety issues were also discussed concerning activities on the roof. Those conditions were imposed upon Horizon, and additionally, there's some corrections that need to be made to the plans that were submitted. So those were transmitted to Horizon, and we're waiting for the report, for the revised submittal, so we can get that taken care of and make sure that there's adequate safety for that particular use. I had the occasion to participate with the administrative team for 2 days preparation for the collective bargaining negotiations. It will be coming up with our unions here in the city. That was all day on the 23rd of May and the 24th. I had the occasion to revise my latest version of the city's contracting and procedures manual and related matters. It was presented and discussed, B was there, presented and discussed over the course of 3 workshops on June 1st, 2 on June 1st and 1 today, June 6th. I think the point of the manual is to try to overcome some of the what could be confusing processes that we utilize and to try to streamline it and make it simpler. It does include such interesting and hot topics as prevailing wage, public improvement projects, liens, notice of commencement, disposal of surplus property, and such topics as do I want to receive income or other monies or property on behalf of the city, and things of that nature. So a very stimulating manual. If you're asleep, not having a hard time falling asleep, pick one up, and we can take care of that for you. But I would also lastly make a comment about Frostville Market goes year-round, I think. They kind of move their activities indoor to the Briggs House in the off-season, but they're back outside. Saturday mornings, if you haven't been down there to the Frostville Market, it's a pretty cool place to go. For anyone that hasn't been down there, a lot of people that, they have their own crafts or they have their own foods. There'll be more vegetables and produce available later in the year. There's a meat market that's down there. They sell a lot of product. It's worth going down to. So it's one of those things where if you haven't been down there, you should go check it out. Walk around. You'll see people you know, and it's good to support some local people who are putting things together and coming down there and marketing themselves. So just wanted to mention that too. So, Mr. President, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director of Finance Kopfer, do you have a report this evening?
Well, I do, but it's shorter because Mr. Crowe mentioned the working with the administration for labor negotiations, and I was a part of that. And also, the finance department did do the presentation as well, as Michael Garreau doing the contracting portion of the presentation for all employees. It was, the mayor made it mandatory for all employees who were any part of the purchasing process to review and refresh people's minds on how we do things here, so that we're doing them to the best of our ability and keeping everybody on the straight and narrow. And so it was very enjoyable. I think we had good discussion. It wasn't just a presentation, it was a back and forth, which I think made it more enjoyable than just sitting and listening, so. And lastly, the green energy notes were sold today. They sold at a 3.9% yield with a 4.75% coupon that they get after the year. The all-in costs, everything, it's the equivalent of 4.64%. So that includes all the cost of selling, bond counsel, and all that as well. So we were really fortunate because we slipped, like, the last couple weeks in the market have been awful, and like Friday and Monday picked up, and then stuff happened again today, but our notes were already sold. So we fit right in there, so I was very pleased. And that enabled me and the mayor to sign the contract with Leopardo. So they're gonna be starting their projects this week, I believe. So finally, we're done. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director. Moving into council committee reports, Councilwoman Williamson, Chairwoman of the Public Safety, Health and Welfare Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Chairman of the Building, Zoning, and Development Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do, thank you, Mr. President. The Building Zone Development Committee met on May 23rd, 2023 at 6:58 p.m. Present were committee members Heeman, Limpert, Williamson, council members Scarl, Kelly, Gilchrist, the mayor, law director, finance director, safety director, service director, HR director, economic development director, and recreation director, as well as the special assistant to the mayor. On the agenda were ordinances 2023 dash, excuse me.
Is it time?
Uh, 2023-52 creates section 118.13. Ordinance 2023-53 defines section 1115. Ordinance 2023-54 is schedule for uses. And ordinance 2023-66 for purchase of vacant property, and PDC number 2324148 found sold tab 2. 2023-52, 53, and 54 were held in committee as the economic development director and law director recommended that we hold off on those to align with other legislation, and that motion passed by a vote of 3-0. Next on the agenda, the 2023-66, which was the purchase of vacant property in the vicinity of I-480 and Brook Park Road near Grace, which was what we labeled a marooned area. That was approved by a motion passed by a vote of 3-0. And the PDC number 23-24148 found sold tattoo was recommended through the Planning Commission, and the committee recommended approval by a vote of 3-0. And the meeting concluded at 7:15 p.m. Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to recommend PDC number 23-24148 found sold tattoo to all council, and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to approve PDC number 23-24148, Found Soul Tattoo, made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
PDC number 23-24148 is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman, Chairwoman of the Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do not, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Vice Chair of the Finance Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do have a report this evening, Mr. President. Thank you. The Finance Committee met on May 23rd, 2023 at 7:15 p.m. Present were committee members Heeman and, Limpert and Williamson. Council members Scarl, Heeman, Gilchrist, the mayor, law director, Madden. Mr. Madden was there as well. The mayor, law director, finance director, safety director, service director, HR director, economic development director, recreation director, assistant, special assistant, the mayor, and guests. On the agenda were ordinances 2023-59, 60, 61, 62. 62 is a resolution, as well as resolution 2023-63, and ordinance 23-64. First on the agenda, the 23-59, which is a police salary ordinance, which was the last step in adding that police position to the budget, and that was recommended by a vote of 3-0. 2023-60 for the city to solicit insurance bids for insurance, building insurance, and not cyber insurance. There was discussion whether cyber insurance should be removed from the ordinance as part of the removal, which it is done, and we made an amendment within the meeting to remove cyber from the legislation, and that vote was passed as amended 2-0. Next on the agenda was ordinance 2023-61, which is to address some discrepancies in the order processing that were discovered during an audit, where some city workers did not present the purchase order into the system before the invoice came, and in some cases those supplies arrived before submitted. The finance director and mayor noted that there will be training around this, and of note, all of those items that were purchased were budgeted and fully expected to be approved. And that motion to approve that piece of legislation passed by a vote of 2-0 through committee. And next on the agenda was Resolution 2023-62, Resolution 2023-63, which were resolutions dispensing with the RFP process and authorize the mayor to enter in a contract with Highland Software to do digital imaging. This is a process that we've continued to do. In the past, the amount of dollars had not exceeded the amount that could be approved without going through council. In this case, they're doing the building department and a broader scope of imaging for additional $43,443, and that came before our group, and we passed it by a motion of by a vote of 2-0. And last was ordinance 2023-64, which is related to the Great Northern Bridge project for the year end 12/31/2023. And Mr. Upton noted that there was an additional increase in the budget for this project since we had last approved the funding for originally $950,000. There's additional $152,340 being requested. There was a typographical error in the legislation, which we discussed in caucus. The number has been corrected, and under the law department's advisement, we will make an amendment at this time to amend ordinance 2023-64 to correct that typographical error to show that the original cost $950,000, the additional increase of $152,340 for a total of $1,102,340, and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to amend ordinance 2023-64 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-64 is amended by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clarify that in committee, we made a motion to recommend that by a vote of 2-0. And the committee concluded at approximately 7:45 p.m. And this concludes my report. Correction, it does not conclude my report.
So close.
So close. We'll be scheduling some finance meetings in the near future, and unfortunately, the finance director will not be available to communicate via cellular phone or other device, audio, visual. So we are making she had submitted in writing that she won't be there in pursuant with ordinance 2016-32, and we will be asking the assistant director of finance to perform those duties in her absence. And do we need to approve that, or does that just need to be entered into record?
Yeah, we need to make a motion and approve.
So I will make that motion that I would
Can I get
enjoy hearing.
clarification? Just for a minute, what's the nature of the motion?
Oh, is this for the Rita?
Yeah.
Rita.
This is for Rita, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Got it.
Yes, we need that.
Has to be a vote.
So I would like to make a motion that the Assistant Director of Finance will be available to represent the Finance Director in the meetings related to said legislation being scheduled later this evening.
It's for Rita.
For Rita. I have to say for Rita?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
For Rita.
for
Which is not a
Rita's
person,
annual
it is the
meeting.
regional income tax.
It's not because of us, it's Rita's.
It's because Rita requires it. Okay.
Okay.
Either way, I'm
Not
excited.
my mother either.
I'm excited to speak with Mr. Sperling to represent, and I'm sure he'll do fine.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion to approve the appointment of Keith Sperling as the Rita alternate delegate made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
The appointment of Keith Sperling as the Rita alternate delegate is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Mr. President, if I may.
Director.
Councilman reported out about the legislation 2023-60 concerning the soliciting proposals for different types of insurance, and that the committee had recommended that there be an amendment to remove cyber insurance. I had discussed that and had determined that an amendment wouldn't be necessary on it. She was authorized to solicit in the ordinance, and we already have it under another plan, so you're gonna have to remove it. She's not gonna resolicit it. We're in the middle of a term. So you can leave it as it is right now without making a motion to amend it. It doesn't have any legal effect. It's not like you directed her to do it. It's authorized to solicit, and it's not necessary to solicit it. She will proceed with all the other coverages that are included there, if you're so inclined. You can make a motion to amend it, but it's not
Well,
necessary.
Mr. Director, we'd already amended it in committee. So
well-
I can certainly not say as amended when we.
Yeah, and you would have had to amend it
approve.
out here to amend the legislation, so we didn't do that yet, and it's not necessary, so it wouldn't be amended,
Yeah,
which is fine.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify.
yeah.
Thank you, Director.
And with that pivotal turn, I now will conclude my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilchrist, Vice Chair of the Environmental Control Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do not, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And right back to you, Councilwoman Gilchrist, Chairwoman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do not for that committee either, Mr. President. Thank you, but I would like to ask you for a moment of personal privilege.
Of course.
And I just wanted to say that I was able to attend the 100-year anniversary celebration at Springvale Ballroom on May 18th. And Director Pinchuk, you did a wonderful job with the staff that put on that party for everyone, and I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Madden, Chairman of the Streets and Transportation Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any letters or communications to come before council at this time?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. We will now move into audience participation. Thank you for attending tonight's council meeting. Public comment offers the opportunity for members of the public to share information and to bring issues and concerns to the attention of city council members. It is not a debate, and public comment speakers should not expect a back and forth exchange. Council members may ask clarifying questions of the speaker, of city staff, or of fellow council members. Those attending city council meetings should show the same respect to others that they wish to have shown to them. And at this time, if there is anyone in the audience who would like to address council, please come to the podium, state and spell your name and address for the clerk. And if you live in a city other than North Olmsted, please state the name of that city and proceed with your comments. You will have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you for indulging my bad hearing. My name is Dennis Lambert, 25057 Cary Lane. Before I start, I may need to run a little more than 5 minutes. I'd appreciate it if you would grant me an additional 5 minutes. I don't think I'll need it, but so I don't have to be interrupted. Will somebody make a motion for that?
Mr. President?
Councilwoman.
Yeah, Mr. Lambert and I did speak, and I would like to make a motion to grant him an additional 2 minutes. He thought that might be enough time.
2 minutes?
Mr. Lambert, that's
Can't
what...
give me 5. All right, I'll try and keep
That's what we
it.
agreed on before the meeting, that you were there.
They say that being in the right place at the right time is a bonus. And for me, it was yesterday. Going into the park, I saw people down off of Cedar Point Hill, 2 people talking at that bridge project. One was the contractor and the other was the representative for the county. And they were discussing that bridge. I told them about me, my interaction with council and the administration, and how I was getting on you to get that project done. In fact, talking to the law director, I even suggested a lawsuit, and the contractor laughed. He doesn't have a contract to finish that bridge. He has a contract to replace the top of the bridge and the substructure, but he doesn't have a contract to do the whole bottom structure, which is a massive concrete assembly that's in the water. And he says, if I change that top and do just the bridge under that, it will crumble eventually. It won't last. The bottom will give way. And with a truck or car passing over, it could be a disaster. The county woman, and I think she was a representative or one of the representatives for that project for the county, says that's our problem. We didn't have the money to replace that. I'm guessing the amount of concrete, and you can take a look at it, that has to be put in the water and set and everything else will cost at least 1.5 times more than the bridge itself would cost to replace the surfaces they had anticipated. So I started to discuss this with them, and they were very congenial to be open-minded and talk to me. I says, well, a simple solution is build a bridge like we build today. Just steel girders above the water going from east to west bank and a surface on top of it, and it'll be fine. I can't see any reason you have to have a subsurface. Why those bridges over 480 have much longer spanses with no support. 480 going over the valley, Interstate 90 going over the valley. And as far as this bridge being historically accurate, we just replaced a bridge around the corner on Lewis Drive in North Olmsted near Rainbow, and it was done in no time at all, modern, steel across the river, and that's it. And he said, I would love to do that project, and I would get it done right away if it can be done, but I can't. The county won't allow me. So I asked the county woman, what's the problem? here's the problem, and it's really necessary that you hear this. A federal historical restriction on changing any way that bridge was built originally in repairing it or replacing it. There's a federal historical restriction. Mark that down, our attorney. Well, being old enough, and probably much older than you and them as well, right away my mind went back to the NRA. Do you know what the NRA is? The National Relief Act, 1933, 90 years ago, probably when that bridge was built. And that National Relief Act was substantial money that Roosevelt put into projects all over this country, building bridges and roads and everything else. Federal money to get the people working again, because the Depression had everyone unemployed.
Mr. Lambert.
Besides the National
Mr.
Relief
Lambert,
Act, there was
Mr.
the
Lambert, 2 more minutes.
All
Yes.
right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get your
If you can give
attention.
me enough time to tell this, it's important. The WPA, Workers Program Administration, administered that. Now, I'm just going to finish up by saying they're at an impasse. It can't be done. They'd like to do it by 2024, but the bridge, as it stands right now, cannot be built that way now with the funds. And I think our law department has a good case to go into, thank goodness, federal court. It's a much better court than county. And take that case to court along with the county attorneys and argue the necessity to waive that restriction on building the bridge. That's what I suggested. And I know federal court, and I know how they operate, and they're very fast. And if they can do that, I think you'll get this whole business off center. You'll save the county probably millions of dollars that can be used in North Olmsted somewhere else. And that bridge is not historically important because Lewis Road Bridge is a modern bridge and it's right on the same area of the park. Thank you very much for hearing me out. Thank you for the extra time. I appreciate that.
Seeing no other comments from the, there are? Okay.
My name is Cindy McGinty, M-C-G-I-N-T-Y. I reside at 24212 Elm Road. I just, came, I hadn't been up here since COVID and that, so I was just coming back to the meeting. And I had a question for our mayor. I used to get texts and that. Did we quit doing that now? Or have we not? There's nothing going on lately or whatever?
Mr. President?
Mayor.
Hi, Mrs. McGinty. No, we are still sending out text messages.
Okay.
There was a problem with the vendor that we were using for the past few weeks, and so if you noticed that there was either a delay or no text messages coming out.
Right.
But we have resolved that problem, and
Okay.
we should be restoring those messages back to you
Okay.
right now. So
Okay.
whenever there is something.
I'll look
yes.
for them then. If I don't, then I'll get back out there and throw me back in the loop with the rest
Perfect,
of it.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And, Mr. President, to Ms. McGinty too, it also, like on our website, our city website also has continuous updates as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if for some reason you see, you're not getting texts again, you might
I
want
just
to.
liked it,
Yeah.
excuse me, sorry. I just liked it because if some, with Dover and Lorraine.
Pops up, yep.
That's perfect because I could even tell family, neighbors, don't go that way, they don't need any traffic, more traffic that way. So that's why. And then, okay, did you have anything else? No?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and then just one other thing I wanted to bring up. I'm part of the Community Emergency Response Team, the CERT team, and I'm one of the members, from the North Olmsted, from our city. And I just wanted, when I heard you talking about that touch a truck, you know, we get involved and we help with that. So, I mean, I am on the advisory board for it. I've been on it for a while. And I was just saying, you know, maybe for like other things that you might be able, you know, we might be able to help and volunteer with that. Myself and John Moody are, and we have other residences, but the two of us are on the advisory committee. And we'd, you know, like I said, we're there to help, you know, do any volunteer work and that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to put a bug in your ear because somebody knew. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. McGinty, I'm Tim Pinchek. I'm the Director of Recreation and Public Engagement for the city. So that's one of our events. So Melissa Shirley, who runs our event, if after the meeting, if I can get your contact information, I'll make sure that she gets a hold of you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Oh, you're gonna be volunteered for everything.
All right, seeing no other comments from the audience, we will now move into legislation.
Legislation on third reading, Resolution 2023-57, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution approving the award of a job creation grant to R.E. Warner and Associates, Inc., and further authorizing the mayor to enter into a grant agreement and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-57 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-57 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-57 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Resolution 2023-58, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing acceptance of grant funding awarded by the Cuyahoga County Council in the amount of $35,000 to provide for construction of improvements at Springvale Golf Course and Ballroom, further authorizing the mayor to enter into necessary agreements, therefore, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 2023-58 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-58 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-58 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Legislation on second reading, ordinance 2023-59, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance amending the rates of compensation for administrative personnel to add an information system specialist in the Division of Police for the year 2023, and otherwise restating the compensation rates and description for various administrative and legislative personnel for the year 2023, and declaring an emergency as amended.
Mr. President,
Councilman Limpert.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings as we discussed in caucus, and this has been something that we've reviewed all throughout the budget process, and it's a matter of timing to get this moving, and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for ordinance 2023-59 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 5-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding ordinance 2023-59, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilman Limpert.
seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2023-59 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2023-59 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-59 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Ordinance 2023-60, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Human Resources to solicit proposals for comprehensive general liability insurance for the city of North Olmsted for 2023, and further authorizing the mayor, subject to approval of the Board of Control, to enter into a contract for said insurance coverage and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman Limpert?
based on our conversation in caucus and desire to get proposals as soon as possible based on inflationary environment, I ask that we suspend the rule requiring 3 readings on ordinance 2023-60 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for ordinance 2023-60 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 5-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding ordinance 2023-60, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilman Limpert?
seeing none, I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2023-60 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2023-60 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-60 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Ordinance 2023-61, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance to authorize the execution of then and now certificates by the finance director and the payment of amounts due for various purchase orders and declaring an emergency. Resolution 2023-62, introduced by Mayor Jones,
Sorry, go ahead.
a resolution dispensing with the RFP process and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Highland Software, Inc. to provide digital imaging services at a cost of $43,443 and approved ARPA funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman Limpert?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings, as they like to package these 2 and get them moved for the digital imaging, try to complete them this year. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2023-62 is made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 5-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-62, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilman Limpert?
seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-62 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-62 is made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-62 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Resolution 2023-63, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution dispensing with the RFP process and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Highland Software, Inc. to provide digital imaging services for the purpose of converting street file images at a cost of $3,235.30.
Mr. President,
Councilman Limpert?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings as this is complementary to 2023-62 for the same reasons and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2023-63 made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 5-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-63, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lippert.
seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-63 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-63 made by Councilman Limpert, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-63 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Ordinance 2023-64, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance to make appropriations for the Great Northern Bridge project for the year ending December 31st, 2023, as amended. Ordinance 2023-66, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Cuyahoga County Land Reutilization Corporation to purchase vacant property known as permanent parcel number 237-19-027. Legislation on first reading, ordinance 2023-67, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to purchase a heavy-duty custom pumper fire truck from Sutphen Corp. For the North Olmsted Fire Department through state purchase program at a cost of $903,474.37 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President, I'd like to request suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review, as this matter was discussed during our budget hearings and again this evening in caucus, and is necessary to order the fire truck at the current price point and avoiding any additional cost increase. And ask for a second.
Second. A motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review for ordinance 2023-67, made by Councilwoman Williamson, seconded by Councilman Madden. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 5-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding ordinance 2023-67, please approach the podium now.
Seeing none, Mr. President, I'd move to adopt ordinance 2023-67 and ask for a second.
Second. Motion to adopt ordinance 2023-67 made by Councilwoman Williamson, seconded by Councilman Madden. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-67 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Ordinance 2023-68, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the construction and maintenance of new custom decorative fencing and branding of same on the bridge carrying Great Northern Boulevard over Interstate Route 480.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Ordinance 2023-69, an ordinance amending section 902.03 entitled Annual Registration Required of Chapter 902 of the Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code of the City of North Olmsted entitled Use of Public Right-of-Way by Service Providers and Contractors Performing Work of Service Provider Facilities in order to provide for annual registration fees.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Ordinance 2023-70, an ordinance amending section 902.09 entitled Recovery of City Costs of Managing the Right-of-Way of Chapter 902 of the Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code of the City of North Olmsted entitled Use of Public Right-of-Way by Service Providers and Contractors Performing Work of Service Provider Facilities in order to provide for permit review and inspection fees.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2023-71, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Holland Paving and Seal Coating to provide services to the wastewater treatment plant at a cost of $5,500.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2023-72, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept a gift on behalf of the city of North Olmsted for the benefit of the Oxcart Food Pantry from the trustee of the Linda Sue Gregson Trust in the amount of $92,612.32 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lippert.
I'd like to make a motion happily to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for 2023-72. As discussed in caucus, this is required for us to accept donations, and it would be prudent to accept them as soon as possible. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review for Resolution 2023-72 made by Councilman Lippert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 5-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-72, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President, Seeing
Councilman.
none, I'd like to make motion to adopt Resolution 2023-72. Ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-72 made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes, with comment on behalf of all of council here, I would like to thank the trustee of the Linda Sue Grigson Trust for such a generous donation.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Seaman?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-72 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Resolution 2023-73, a resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to advertise for bids to award a contract for the Brook Park Road Underpass Improvement Project Phase 1 is detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to enter into contract with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Ordinance 2023-74, an ordinance to make and transfer appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of North Homestead for the year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
All right, thank you. So moving into scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. We'll start with Councilman Limpert. Would you like to schedule a BZD meeting?
I would, Mr. President. I'd like to schedule building zone development on the 13th of June at 7 o'clock to address ordinances 2023-52, 53, and 54. Ask that the Economic Development Director and the Law Director be present.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman for Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to schedule 2023-72, I'm sorry, 71, at 7:15 to 7:20. And I would like the mayor and her designee, either a service director or perhaps someone from the wastewater treatment plant. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Limpert, scheduling for finance.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to schedule finance, is that at 7, what time, I'm sorry, Missy, what time did you say?
7:20 it is.
7:20, schedule it at 7:20 on June 13th to address ordinances 2023-69, 2023-70, and 2023-74, and ask that the assistant, the finance director, or deputy finance director be present, and also the law director and any of the mayor's designee. Yeah. Assistant Director of Finance, Mr. Sparling.
I was curious about the deputy part.
I know, I got excited.
You
know.
deputized.
Well, you know, our theme for the purchasing was the Wild West, so
Yes.
Yeah,
he
right,
was
right.
deputized.
It feels like it sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Madden for Streets and Transportation meeting.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to schedule a Streets and Transportation Committee meeting at 7:35 to discuss 2023-68 and 2023-73, and ask for the mayor and economic development director to be present.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion on the floor to excuse the absence this evening of Councilman Glassburn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion to excuse Councilman Glassburn made by Councilwoman Williamson, seconded by Councilwoman Gilchrist. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Seaman?
Yes.
Sorry. Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Councilman Glassburn is excused by a vote of 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor to excuse the absence of Councilman Scarl?
So moved. Ms. Gilchrist
The
will take
ladies
that
have
one.
it.
All right, well, which lady has it?
Ms. Gilchrist.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion to, on the floor to excuse the absence of Councilman Scarl made by Councilwoman Gilchrist, seconded by Councilwoman Heeman.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman Scarl is excused by a vote of 5-0. With the agenda being completed and there being no further business to come before council, this meeting of June 6, 2023 is adjourned at 8:57 PM.